Welcome to another episode of the Marathon Mindset Podcast. I am your host, Mike Campos, and today we are talking something a little different instead of business, but still in the whole mindset and I want to say like mental fortitude. So today I got Miguel Esparza. He is what would you say that your, I want to say your profession, the word I was looking for. Profession would be professional photographer. He also does stuff for us here in our real estate office, property management, does home photos as well for us, for other agents as well. But he also has a athletic endeavors that he's part of. And so there was something that he did recently and that I wanted to talk about, but I'm going to go ahead and introduce Miguel Esparza.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
You're welcome, sir. I appreciate you being here. We talked about your race. You've run this race before.
Once, yeah.
Once before. And when you told me about it, because of our relationship and because of how we discuss things,
yeah,
I took it as cool. It was a race.
Yeah.
Not until I went on a recent vacation and drove up this mountain that you've raced before, that you were going to race again, that I noticed how extreme this mountain was. And I decided, I was like, man, I remember texting you like, I'm on this mountain that you're about to run and I think you're crazy. So let me ask you this. The first time you ran it, what made you want to run it?
So I got introduced to this race because my dad ran it probably when he was like 35.
Okay.
And he did it a whole bunch. And I grew up just with him talking about this race and training for it and had kind of being like you, like no concept to it. You know, he ran San Antonio or Austin or, whatever,
right.
Marine Corps. And it goes, oh, it's just another race.
Okay.
And then I got the opportunity when COVID happened to like really look into like stuff you can do outside, and lo and behold, Pike's Peak came up.
Yeah.
So the more I read it, I was like, man, this is a race.
Yeah.
I want to do it. I like stuff that challenges me.
Yeah.
Whether it's professionally or athletically, if it's easy, I just, I'll do it because, you're an adult, but I don't feel like I get fulfilled out of stuff that just comes easy to me. So I'm always trying to find ways to put myself into these type of situations, and just reading about Pikes Peak, man, it's just kind of what you experience. When I read what the race entails, I was like, oh, I got to do it. And then I did it the first time and kind of just enjoyed it.
So let's go back. I always do this. I always getting into the story and I go back. So you came to me into this exact same thing and said, hey, we should try to do something kind of like extraordinary or extreme and for the office, and said, hey, let's run this Spartan race. So you were the one that kind of got us into, let's do the Spartan race as an office. We started to do that. We did it as an office. We did the first race. And then I think that like 3 or 4 of us continued to say, let's do the trifecta. We did the trifecta. I think Julio, you and myself completed it. Of course, you were way faster than all of us. But like, and you hadn't done those type of races either. It was just something that you wanted to challenge yourself as well.
Yeah. So the way I looked at that race is probably a little different from you. So if you look at us, right,
yeah.
we're very different people, right?
Sure.
The 5K, the 10K, the half marathon, that's cake for someone like me. But the challenge for me in those races, and the reason I want to do it initially was, I'm 145 pounds dripping wet.
Yeah.
I want to see, what am I made of strength wise, right?
Yeah.
So that was a good way of kind of getting that entry into, hey, where am I at? Like, what can and can't I do? And that was the motivation for those Spartans.
So you've always been a runner. Is that because of your dad?
I think I've been a runner because I grew up playing soccer, and just in Texas and soccer with football coaches being your primary coach,
Yeah.
they just tell you to run, and you just run and run and run. And I'm just naturally good at running. So
Okay.
I wouldn't say like enjoy it,
Yeah.
but it's something, when you know you're good at it, why wouldn't you do it? So,
Yeah. All right. So let's go back to first year that you did the Pikes Peak. There's a couple of different races.
correct.
There's like one that's called the Ascent. You just go up, and then there's the marathon that's you go up and down.
Yep.
Because it's like 13.1 or something like that each way.
Yep.
So the first time you did it, you only did the Ascent.
No, I did the marathon right off the bat.
Okay. And how long does that typically take?
So there's a big difference between people who live in Colorado
Yeah.
and people like you or me who are, flatlanders, right?
Yeah.
So when my dad did it, he did it in, I think, 8:34, 8:35
Okay.
back in the day. So he was really fit, trained all the time. So I kind of looked at him as, not an elite athlete, but somebody who's in shape, and would do that. So
Yeah.
that was kind of my bar, my metric.
Yeah.
So I think the first time I did it in 7:47. It's a hard race.
Yeah.
And if
What's
you're
the hardest part? Up, of course.
down is way harder. That anybody could go up that mountain. Anybody. So first I was just backing it up to what the race is. So the race is just running the bar trail. It's a public trail. You could go up to any day of the week and hike the race course.
Okay.
It is the same course up as it is down. On the way up, it's routine. You show up at 5 a.m. on a Saturday. You hike up to the top. You take the buses down, and that's that. Coming down is an entirely different animal. And that first time around, man, I was not prepared for the descent of that race.
And is that in altitude, or is that because just in terrain and the way you have to run it down?
It's a lot more the terrain. So
Okay.
if you want to talk about kind of my first experience on the mountain,
Yeah.
so everybody I talked to, every book I read, basically said that I don't care who you are, unless you're an elite athlete, an Olympian, you can lose the race in the first 3 miles. So you're getting onto the mountain is a nice, easy road race.
Okay.
But as soon as you hit the base, there's this section called the W's. And I think you do about 2,000 or 3,000 altitude gain over 1.8, just under 2 miles. And, a lot of people, you're in a big pack, you're trying to get separation.
Yeah.
And you really push yourself to do that. And a lot of people do that, and they just, they're spent right then and there, and they still have, 4,000 or 5,000 feet to go up. So it's a beast, man.
Yeah. So, and in that time, what month are you running this at?
So they've changed the race a little bit. But
Yeah.
back then it was mid to late August. Changed every year, but mid to late August.
That was when you ran it the first time.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was the weather?
So the weather was perfect for me. It was really, really windy when you got above the tree line.
Yeah.
But the big complaint from everybody else there is it's hot. It's it's hot up there. You get above the tree line,
Yeah.
and you're just exposed to the elements, and it's windy, and the UV index is just beating on you.
Yeah.
It's hot.
Okay.
So
that was or weather wise, that was the most of it, or
yeah.
okay. Because I know this year, when you ran it this year, we were talking about snow.
Oh, yeah.
So different month. We ran it in September.
We ran it mid-September, so about a month later, which may not seem like a lot, but
yeah.
the mountain, I believe they just closed the mountain this week, maybe late last week.
Yeah.
So they really push it back to the extreme of what they even let people on the mountain for, and it made a huge difference race-wise.
Crazy. And we were talking about chains on your shoes.
Yeah. So I didn't know how to run in snow, but as we kind of got closer to the race, it became very obvious that you're going to be running through snow and ice, and how do you do that? I'm from Texas, man.
Yeah.
We don't have this stuff.
No.
Maybe we run in a little bit of mud here or there, but
Yeah.
for the most part, our running season is nice and dry and just, humid and hot.
Yeah.
So I actually had to go buy micro spikes to be able to run on ice and snow
Yeah.
up there at that elevation.
So you talked about preparation and just running season and whatnot. So how do you prepare for elevation here?
So the first time I ran it, it's one of those times where you're like, I know what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
And then you get there and you realize I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
where I'm at now, I don't think there's really much someone like you or me could do to train for altitude, short of showing up early
Yeah.
to acclimate
Yeah.
or just moving there.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot of devices and stuff that people try to tell you or you know, work on VO2 max, but just the science behind what they're trying to do is just not there.
Okay.
So I gave up on that. What I did do, a couple of tricks of mine are I drank a lot of beet juice leading up to the race.
What does that do?
So it helps your red blood cells be able to take in more oxygen. It's something that Sherpas in the Himalayas do. A lot of people in Colorado do it just to kind of get some more oxygen out of it.
Yeah.
We never have to deal with this because we have plenty of oxygen down here at 300-400 feet.
Huh.
And then the other thing I did was baby aspirin.
What does that do?
So it thins your blood, right? So it stops clotting. If you go up there, you get more oxygen. It seems great, or less oxygen seems great.
Yeah.
So your body has to make more red blood cells to try to pull oxygen. That makes thicker blood.
Okay.
So you need to thin out your blood so you can move that oxygen quicker. It helps a lot.
So how long what's that trick with the baby aspirin? How far out do you have to do that?
So I started at 72 hours before the race.
Oh, okay. Not like weeks or
no, because it's a very temporary thing. The moment you stop taking baby aspirin, right, within 24 hours, your blood's back to normal.
Okay. So can't really imitate the elevation. You got the hacks. So this year for this race, since you had already run it, it was the same course. You're running the same thing, but you did another race.
Yeah. So I did the doubler this year.
What is that?
So as there's the ascent and there's the marathon. So I think there was about 2,000 people who did the ascent, and out of those people, 80 people attempted to double. So on Saturday you run the ascent, so that 13.1 up. Okay. It actually really is 13.32, but that's its own separate thing. And then on Sunday, the very next day, you get up and you run the full marathon. So up that same course you ran the day before, and then back down.
So what does it take? 3-4 hours to go up?
So to put in perspective, the guy who won the entire ascent did it in 2:02, which sounds like, wow, that's pretty good. That same athlete on a flat would probably run like a 1:12 half marathon. So it's a big difference going up a mountain.
Okay.
So generally speaking, you ascend in under 5.5-6 hours.
Oh wow.
You're doing good. And the cutoff for that race on the ascent is 7.5.
Okay, so if you don't finish in 7.5, you just don't finish.
Yeah, you basically get a DNF.
Okay.
So they'll let you finish the race, but no medal, no results, and
all right.
We'll get into that later.
So what did you do the ascent in?
So I did it in 5:02.
So 5:02 on a Saturday morning at 5 a.m. is the start time.
Yeah, 5 a.m. here.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna lie, I was really upset with my ascent time. So my goal was to do it in sub 4. And
oh yeah, we talked about
that.
So why? So say why it took so long.
So lessons I learned from the first time, right?
Sure.
Going into the first time, everybody is sort of, hey, you're gonna die in the first 3 miles if you don't do it right.
Yeah.
Is you're gonna get above the tree line, and it's gonna hit you. The lack of oxygen is gonna hit you.
Okay.
And I remember last time going, I feel fine, but I don't want to push it and and die up there, not die, but just tank. So I remember having a 38-minute mile and then a 42-minute mile last time around. So I approached this race way differently, and I had decided that, hey, I'm gonna push for a PR on one of these 2 days for the ascent. And I had decided, well, I can finish the marathon, limping down the mountain. So I'm gonna push for it on day one when I'm fresh, and I think that's just where it's at. So I'm on pace to do sub 4. Okay. And then I got to above the tree line, and you get into ice and snow, and it's hard to describe the terrain, but it's not like a trail run.
Okay.
You are running over boulders. You are on the side of a mountain, and the path is maybe 24 inches wide. Maybe it gets up to 30 in some places, and it gets really narrow in others. So when you running across the face of this mountain, you hit these switchbacks, and they're icy, and you're climbing over a boulder.
When you're going like this.
Yeah. and you're climbing over boulders and up stuff,
Yeah.
you end up just standing in a line. Much like those pictures you'll see on Everest of how it's overcrowded.
Yeah.
There's 2,000 people attempting to do the ascent.
Okay.
And, unless you're straggling behind, like way behind, or you're in that initial elite pack,
Yeah.
you're going to stand up there.
Yeah.
And I got up there and I knew it was about 2 miles to go. That, hey, there's just too many lines and I'm just going to be standing too long to be able to hit my time.
Yeah.
So, you have to make that difficult decision of like, do I keep let my mentality tank?
Yeah.
Or do I just say, hey,
Go with it.
here's the situation I'm in.
Yeah.
We're going to finish this race and we're going to regroup and do this again tomorrow.
So you said something right there that made me think of you're doing this by yourself because I think you said your dad went with you, but you weren't running with your dad. He was doing the marathon.
Yeah. So he was doing the ascent too, but
okay.
we both run. He didn't want to affect me. I didn't want to affect him. It's never good to run someone else's race.
Right.
You could take that back in life.
Yeah.
It's just do your own thing. If you know what works for you, do it.
Right. So you're running pretty much by yourself. I mean, you can talk to runners that are going with you or whatever, but so when you get to that point, it's mental, your dialogue pretty much.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, there's everybody's got a goal
right
on this thing, right?
Right.
And for me, right, my 5 hours, my 5:02, I'm disappointed in it.
Yeah.
There are people that would be thrilled to have a 5:02 time.
Yeah.
There was a gentleman that I got up to above the tree line probably at like 2:30. He turned around and said, "Not my day. I'm turning around." He probably would have finished in a sub 4 because he was walking down. I don't know how long he'd been walking down, but he was like, "Hey man, are you okay?" He's like, "You hurt?" No, it's just not my day today. Don't like my time. And he chose to just walk down the mountain. So another, I don't know.
So he didn't go all the way up.
No, he didn't finish the race. He's got, I don't know, we're up there at 3 hours, 2:45, 3 hours. He's decided that he doesn't want to finish the race. 2 miles to go. Not that he physically couldn't do it,
right?
But I don't know
Mentally.
if it was timing or, those goals, right? Those goals, they start to rear their ugly heads as you get towards the finish and what you are and aren't going to do.
Right.
And he chose to turn around and walk those 10, 11 miles back down the mountain.
And so just to also put something else on it. So, I mean, the race, you still have to pay for the race. You got to pay to travel there.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're a native person, right?
Right.
You're probably going to have a hotel lodging.
Yeah.
You have an airfare.
Yeah.
Most people don't just show up on Friday to race Saturday and then leave.
Right.
I got there on Wednesday. I met a lot of people who got there on Monday. I mean, you are investing,
right.
At least $1,000 to do this.
Sure. So you're standing in line and you're like, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and go with it.
Yeah. I mean,
and
you're cold.
Yeah.
It's doing that rainy sleet thing. You're staying in ice and, you can be as miserable as you choose to be up there.
So that's only 5 going up. So now you still got to walk down or you take a bus.
So you take a bus down.
Okay.
Luckily on day 1, the finish line's up there.
Okay.
And it's still snowy and windy. They got a visitor center, but you're up there.
So that brings me back to when I went up there because I had no idea. When the first time you talked about Pike's Peak, I'll be honest, I didn't know where it was. I mean, I think you told me and I was just kind of like, all right, yeah, I've heard of it, but I don't know where it's at. And we go to Denver for this concert and we're with another couple and, the guy had been there before. He travels there for work and was like, hey, you want to go to the mountain? And we're like, yeah, whatever. Like he was driving, decided he was just going to take us there. So we were like, yeah. So we're just driving. I didn't realize how far it was. We were just talking a lot. And we get to the admissions little lodge thing, whatever. We pulled up to it and he hands us the pamphlet and I see it. And that's when I went, oh crap, this is what Miguel's running. And at the same time, I was like, okay. And I'm looking at this map and I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna be fun. Like, we're going in the car, He's telling me how we drive up the mountain, how you have to drive down because of the brakes and all these things. And I'm like, that's crazy. Okay, whatever. But I'm not going to lie. We got to, it was probably 10 or 11 miles up and there's no rail on these roads. There's no anything. I'm just seeing straight down. I'm in the passenger front seat. I'm looking around. I'm going, this is high.
Yeah, they're confident drivers, aren't they?
Oh, I know. And then I was just like, he started to kind of speed up on certain of those switchbacks you were talking about. I'm like, bro, there's no need to. We don't need to do any of that. Like, it's just, so, but to make a long story short, we get up to the top And I literally open the door and I take 4 steps and I'm like, oh crap, I'm lightheaded. Like I felt dizzy like for a little bit. And I had to just stand still for a second and went, all right, hold up. I need to just chill. And so like I walked real slow inside the visitor center and was kind of like, what's wrong? Like you know what I mean? Like I never felt that before. And it took me a good 5 to 10 minutes to kind of just acclimate and be like, all right, I'm cool. But it was cold up there because the wind and everything. So yeah, I mean, you running where there's snow and then just being up there for that long and going up, like running it, like, nah, bro, I was, so that's why I was like, okay, I got to hear more about your race when you decide. And then you told me about the spikes for the snow and everything else. And I'm like, shit, nah, that's crazy. So then they bring you back down. You're not happy with your time. And you got to wake up in the morning and run the marathon.
Yeah.
So what time? 5 a.m. again?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and that, that night was a lot of, you gotta regroup.
Yeah.
You come down.
So you're talking with your dad. How are those conversations or what? Like you just kind of like game planning?
First I had to wait for them to finish. So it was my dad and my uncle. So wait for them to finish. And then it's, that you've been on that ride down, right? So then it's not like a quick, you're back at your car in 10 minutes. You're on a bus for an hour.
Yeah.
You got to pass the brake station and all that. And then you're just like, all right, you're back into basically race mode of what do I need to do? Stretch, eat, hydrate. And I think we went back to the hotel. We got Noodle and Company, ate 2 bowls of pad thai, drank 4 bottles of Pedialyte Sport, stretched out, and just, got ready for the next day, packed up and got ready for the next day. Adrenaline kind of takes over. Like you get that excitement of like, I'm halfway done, but at the same time, right, you're really only a third of the way done because you've only gone up the mountain. You guys still got to go up and down.
Yeah.
So in my head going into day 2, I wasn't even halfway done with what I wanted to accomplish. So
right. So before this, what's the furthest you've run before, like in one race?
I mean, I did the Pikes Peak Marathon, so 26.2. Okay. Probably there.
So, but you had never done a doubler like this?
No, I had not done a doubler.
Okay. So you've done the half, or call it a half up a mountain, and then now you're going to go do you're going to go do a marathon up and down the mountain.
Yep.
Is it a different trail?
The exact same trail. And day 2 has its own challenges.
Okay. So is your uncle and dad running this one too?
No.
Okay. So now you're really by yourself.
You're completely by yourself. And on top of that, right? So day 1, there's 1,800, 2,000 people.
Yeah, I was going to say. So there's 80?
Day 2, of those 2,000, right?
Okay.
80 of those people said, hey, I'm going to try to do the marathon.
So there's still more than that. There was just only 80 from the one that did the ascent.
Correct. But the total marathon, there's only about 800 people. So it's a much smaller race.
Okay.
You are way more spread out.
Okay.
And unless you're one of those people that just kind of finds that group, which I'm not, I typically in between 2 groups of people time-wise.
Okay.
So I basically ran the race alone for the most part.
Yeah. So take us through that.
So day 2, it's the same course up and down.
Right.
So as you start to progress up the mountain, you're going through, all right, I made it through the W's. I'm at bar camp. I'm at A-frame. People start to come down the mountain on this 24-inch wide trail.
Already?
So you're the leaders, they're probably passing about 3:15. For me, I was almost to the cirque.
How far is that?
So the cirque is probably 9 miles in.
Okay.
Yeah, into the race.
Okay.
The cirque is, in my opinion, the hardest part of the whole race. The terrain's atrocious.
Okay.
It's a lot like getting on your elliptical and just dialing it up to 14, and you're just walking straight up. There's nothing but rocks and tree limbs and stuff to end your race.
So it's not a run. You're kind of like running.
Power walking, running.
At this point, but there's parts where you're running.
Yeah, I would say that unless you are finishing the race, like you are paid to be there.
Yeah.
You are walking 50% of this race up.
Okay.
It's just the between the technical terrain and running up a hill, like you're gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
So that circuit, it's very difficult. And just where I unfortunately ended up at was people coming down is you're constantly trying to run up this section
Yeah.
and then get out of the way so that, you know, these guys are, I mean, they're just flying down, especially the first couple people in.
Yeah.
I mean, they're taking steps and they're going yards downhill, you know, just yards.
And they're not, I mean, they're running.
Yeah, dude, they are full on sprinting
Damn.
down this section. And
No poles or anything like that?
no, they're not allowed.
Okay.
So, I mean, they're just running like gazelles down
Okay.
this.
All right.
And so that starts to become very, very challenging.
Yeah.
And then it was much hotter on day 2. So right around the cirque, you get up with this crushed granite, mud, clay, and then rock and stuff. The snow has started to melt from the previous day.
Yeah.
And it's just draining down. So you are kind of running through, you know, little
Slush water.
little slush waters, stuff that, you know, you hit the wrong rock, you're gonna slip and that's it. So that's, I mean, that was probably the most difficult part of.
You said you saw somebody like
On the way down, that was its own. And we'll get to the down part.
So you're going 10 miles in, and what's the mental at that point?
Mental's good.
Yeah.
For me, because I kind of adjusted how I was running this go around.
Yeah.
I started really slow, and I didn't want to worry about passing people on the W's or this section called Bob's Road where you're definitely running.
Okay.
And I had determined that, hey, I'm gonna make my time adjustment move to, you know, gain ground on the cirque, because I know, like, just the way my body is, I can move much quicker there than most of the people to be around. So my cirque was a fantastic time.
Okay.
And I think I passed about 50, 60 people in this really, like, strong, difficult area.
Yeah.
And then I got to what they call A-frame. When you get to the A-frame,
Yeah.
it's your last stop, basically, to getting to above the tree line. So it's a bigger rest stop.
Okay.
They have Tylenol, they got Coca-Cola, they got gummy bears, grapes, fantastic stuff.
Okay.
And that's really, I'd say, the next 6 miles kind of dictate your race. So it's 3 miles from there up,
Yeah.
and then 3 miles back down to that place.
Okay.
And then, like, you're out of the elements, the roughest part's over, and all that.
Okay.
But those next 6 miles, I mean, they're very, very difficult. And you start to see people at this point where either they've realized they're not achieving their goal,
Yeah.
and then on the way down, you start to deal with people of knowing, like, hey, I finished here at this time. I know it took me this long to get here, and they're not going to finish the race. And, you know, you're caught in this boat of, you know, you're trying to motivate these people on the way down, but at the same time knowing they're not going to meet the cutoff at the top for the marathon.
Okay. So, I mean, because I always thought, like, coming down would just be faster.
So it's faster, but it's very violent on your body.
Okay.
One
because of the altitude, or is it because of the?
is you're going downhill
Okay.
for 13 miles. So think of it like this. What's the longest you've ever run up something consistently? For most of us, it's probably stadium bleachers, right?
Yeah.
So that's the farthest we've ever gone down.
Okay.
But, you know, we're very hamstring dominated, especially in America. Football, you know, acceleration, all that stuff. There's not a great place outside of running and hiking up and down mountains to train your body to come down something.
Got it.
So anybody can try this at home. Next time you're really, really sore from running or doing a workout, and you got to go upstairs, turn around, walk up backwards. I promise you, you will not feel a thing because your body is using an entirely new set of muscles. So when you get to the top to come back down, it's like you have a new body.
Right.
But as most people realize, is they have not trained that part of their body even remotely as close to what they have trained their, you know, going forward and running and all that. Your hamstrings, I mean, they'll carry the day in any good old marathon.
Right.
Your quads, oh, that's all coming down. And most people don't train their quads. They just don't.
Yeah. So you get to the top, you're coming back down, and then that's when people are kind of like assessing their time and going whether that they want to continue doing it.
Yeah, I mean, so there's some people who they get up there, they're unhappy with their time, they just say, I'm
call
done.
it a day.
Take the bus down, do that.
Yeah.
There are people who get up there and they didn't make the cutoff. They're pulled from the race. They're not allowed to go finish.
Okay.
And then there are people who you're turning around, they're still on their way up. And as you get farther and farther down the mountain, you know, it's kind of like you're thinking to yourself, like, why are you running this?
Right.
You know? And it's a big deal because it's a public trail. So they'll tell you, hey, you've missed the cutoff. And, I mean, they can't pull you off the trail. So some of these people will be very stubborn and keep going up and, you know, just not wanting to admit that, hey, I'm not going to accomplish this goal
Sure.
I set out for.
Okay. But then they're in that 24 inches of space.
Yes. And you're navigating these people and it's a nightmare.
And that's where you said you saw somebody fall or something like that.
Yeah. So coming back down on the circ,
Yeah.
this guy's in front of me. And it's, as I mentioned, it's a very like technically challenging thing. I think it's the only part of the downhill that I didn't just outright run.
Okay.
I probably speed jogged it somewhere between a run and a jog.
Yeah.
And I saw this guy, he was running. He hit something. I think it was a tree limb or a root.
Yeah.
Stumbled and just smacked his head in the side of the mountain. And he stumbled, he rolled, he got back, I kept running, and he's just covered in blood. And I don't know, about a quarter mile later, half mile later, you know, they have these rescue crews out there to facilitate stuff. So they're called El Paso County Rescue. Okay. And they had pulled them, and I don't know what was going on, but they have him sitting down and, you know, probably checking, hey, man, are you okay? Because you're covered in blood. I don't know if you know this, but you're covered in blood.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that guy ever finished the race, but I mean, he got up and kept running, but it's, you know, you can, it's one of those races where, you know, if you go run the San Antonio Marathon or the Austin Marathon, right?
Yeah.
Short of pulling a hamstring, right? You may not be happy with your time, but if you do your training, you're going to finish the race.
Yeah, yeah.
If you don't do the training here, you're not going to finish the race. If you are unlucky and trip and fall, you are not going to finish the race. There are about 100 different ways you are not going to finish this race that don't involve your body just giving out on you.
Yeah. It just takes me back to when we did the Beast.
Yeah.
Because I literally did not do any training for. We did so much training for the first one, which was what did they call it?
The sprint. No, we did the middle one.
The middle one, which is the
super.
So we did the middle one first, and we all trained for that because we were like, we're all out of shape except you. And we did the training, and we're like, okay, and everybody finished, everybody was good. And then the sprint was the smaller one. We did that second, and then the Beast. And we were like, look, if we do this one in the calendar year, we get to finish what we call the trifecta. And so I remember Julio was the only one, and you were the only one. They were like, yeah, I'll do it. Let's go. And it was like in Dallas and some ranch, and we were like, okay. And it was some weird day, and I think you had something going on, and like you showed up separate.
Yeah.
And so like I didn't even see you. Julio and I were like by ourselves, and I just remember taking off, and I don't know, it's supposed to be 14, 13 miles. I don't remember what it was supposed to be, but it was literally 15 miles.
Yeah.
And I was going like after maybe 7 or 8, because the Super's 8. And I think it was like right around that same time. I was like, I'm done. Like I can't. But I think it was just my whole, like my body started shutting down a little bit because I didn't train for it. And so like I walked the next 2 or 3 miles because Julio was like, I think he said, he goes, you good? And I was like, I'm good. And he said he took that as, I'll see you later. Like he didn't want me to, you know what I mean? And so I was like, no, I was just saying like, wait up for me. Like I'm good. And I didn't see him the rest of the race. So I'm there by myself. I met some dude. He helped, gave me some salt pellets, whatever. And we just speed walked and tried to finish it. So yeah, the training part, especially if you're doing something, you know, more than a 10K or something like that, like I'm like, you have to do it or else you're just going to suffer through the rest of the race. So, so you get close. So as you're getting close to finishing, I mean, are you on your time? Are you?
So it's funny you mentioned that. I had a watch malfunction in the middle of this race, and it you know, you're coming down, you're tired, you start to get anxious because you're like, you know, I care about my time a lot, and I'm trying to do this math in my head based on the race time, the normal time, just because I know when the race started, and I'm trying to figure out like where I'm at time wise because I had my watch stopped at some point. And I didn't know where it was. I was able to figure out at one of the rest stops that it stopped for about 40 minutes.
Okay.
and then I'm trying to do math of like adding hours up in minutes to figure out what my pace was.
Sure.
And I ended up going, oh my God, I'm way off my time. Like I have to, figure this out. So the last 6 miles, I'm just all out running, thinking that like there's no way I'm gonna finish over 9 hours in this thing. No way. So I'm running. I get to the W's and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like right on. Like I have to just do like 3.25, 6:30 miles to get to the finish line before 9.
Yeah.
So I'm going, and the W that I mentioned, it's loose gravel. It's 17 switchbacks, I think, with these pulls, right? So you're just flying down this, hoping not to bust ass.
Yeah.
I started grabbing the pulls and kind of what you do with the kid where you swing around and all that.
Yeah,
so I just keep going. And I'm just going. At this point, your body's just hurting.
Yeah.
You're just coming down. Your legs hurt, your bones hurt. It's a lot. And I'm just looking at my watch, and it just seems like, man, this thing's going faster and faster and faster. And kind of like the Spartan race, man. They have these little signs out there that tell you, 5 miles ago, 6 miles ago. And I'm running, and I'm like, where is mile 2? Where's 2 to go at?
Yeah.
Finally, there's 2 to go. And I'm running. And at this point, I'm like keeping track of my rolling mile time, my average pace, and the distance. And I'm like, something's way off here. And I'm like, it's the same. There's no way the race course is this off. At least in the Spartan, right? They don't tell you. You just keep going and going. Like, oh, there's the finish. Yeah. I was like, I bet you the sign's the most accurate thing out here. So I was just like, I better get going. So I'm flying. I finally get off the mountain. I'm down to the pavement. And I'm running. I'm like, I got like 3 minutes to go, half a mile. And I'm just exhausted. And I'm just going. And I turn this corner. And once you turn the corner, the finish line's about, I don't know, 75 yards away, 50 yards away. And I see the clock, and it's like 30 minutes off. I'm way under time. Wow. But, I had to make this conscious decision to go, hey, this is going to hurt. But I want to achieve this thing. Yeah. So I guess I got to do it. And I think for me, like, that's what the race is all about is. Yeah. And even in life, right? There's a lot of things that you have to choose to want to be there. Yeah. And if you don't choose to be there, you're going to be miserable, or you're not going to achieve what you want to achieve. Yeah. And some people can make that decision. Some people can't. Yeah. And racing and athletics and even challenging stuff professionally, that's what it's all about for me is I want to be in an environment where I have to every day choose I want to be here, because if I'm in that moment or in that environment, I'm getting fulfilled. Yeah. I'm not just coasting and existing with no purpose, Yeah.
And I think things happen for a reason. I think so what was your goal for the marathon?
Sub 9, and I came in at 8:42, just something crazy.
So do you think that if their watch had never done that, would you have made it?
No, I think, like racing, I always get mad at my dad for it. And I think I fall in the same boat of when you plan, you say, hey, I'm going to run an 8-minute mile. Yeah. And you show up on race day and you go find your little person with the little pacer sign that says, hey, I run the 8-minute mile marathon, and you run with them. Are you really running the race? I mean, are you? I mean, you're physically doing it, right? But you're not running the race. You're not going out there, right? There's days where, hey, maybe you're going to just fall flat and you're not going to hit the 8 minutes. Right. Maybe you're going to go out there and be like, hey, I just ran a 7:15, or 16 out of the 24 miles. Yeah. And I think that that's the trap that a lot of runners specifically fall into of like, everything's so planned and so orchestrated that this watch mishap just allowed me to, in a way, see what can I do? Well, you're 18 miles into this race. Right. What can I do? Yeah.
Well, I think it also, it applies to a lot of things, right? Because like when you're thinking about, like even working out, like right, if you're trying to PR, do all those things, like when you're literally thinking about the time or the reps or the thing, like, or the weight, and you're looking at the weight, like, oh, that's a lot, like it's whatever. Like sometimes, like, but if you don't even think about it, you just grab it and go, and you're like, oh shit, I just lifted this or whatever, right? It's the same kind of concept. I think it's not being in your head, and then that kind of forces us to kind of like, overthink it, and then you don't do it, as opposed to like you, it didn't, you know, just kind of accident. You're like, fuck, I gotta make this still. I'm making that decision to beat that time.
Yeah, or attempt to, right?
Yeah.
Whether you achieve your goal and beat your time or you don't, right?
You made the effort.
You made the decision to give it a shot.
Yeah.
And you know, in a gym, right? I'm a small guy. Every now and then, one of my trainers will be like, "Hey, just to hand me a weight," and I'll be like, "What is this? Don't worry about it, right?"
Yeah.
You're trying a new weight, and you know, for you, Mike. I mean, when's the last time you tried a new kettlebell? You know, unless somebody's there pushing it, right?
Yeah.
We go in there, we do a routine, we do a workout, we give it our 100%.
Yeah.
But sometimes the 100% is really not pushing yourself because
Right.
at some point the 100%, you know you're gonna do it.
Yeah. No, there's the mindset in the training world that, you know, if you're not pushing the weight, at least, you know, every now and then, to where you're like, you're always lifting the same weight, like you're never going to grow. You know what I mean? And so it's trying to, you know, okay, go like this morning, there was a heavy goblet squat that I was like, I hadn't done that with that weight, but it's like, okay, I'm supposed to do three sets of 15. Like, that's not going to happen. But it's like, let's try it out, see what happens. So it's the same thing, but I was floored after coming down the mountain and literally looked back at it and went, because I sent you a pic and I was like, so you're running where? And you were showing it to me and I was just like, yeah, that's crazy. Because I think the way I felt at the top, that's why. I think after feeling and going, dude, but if you're or you're running up that climb and hitting that elevation, but at the same time, just the terrain itself, right? So, but so what's next?
You know, that's what we're talking about. I think I'm gonna do the doubler again next year, but I'm gonna do the doubler for just kind of. I just like the race.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to find the next thing to do. Stretch goal. I'd love to do Everest. Probably start with like a base camp thing, which is, from what I've heard, is its own nightmare in itself, just getting there.
Yeah.
But it'll be something like that. I want to do something that's days long, kind of a race.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a challenging hike or something that challenges you mentally and physically.
We talked about the Appalachian Trail before.
Appalachian Trail.
That's one.
But I think if you were to have me name something right now, it'd be climbing Mount Rainier. So Mount Rainier is an interesting mountain.
Yeah.
So it and Pike's Peak, I think it's like 300 to 400 feet difference in elevation.
Okay.
Nothing crazy. Mount Rainier requires a climbing pass and like a 2-day expedition to get up the mountain and down the mountain. Totally different experience.
That's just a hike. That's not.
I mean, you got to get a climbing pass. Sure. I mean, it's 400 elevation, and that's the difference in experience.
Yeah.
And now that I've kind of done this 14er, I think I want to like actually climb something.
Yeah.
So I think that's my next like realistic thing I'm gonna do.
Have you ever thought about ultra running?
I have. In my many athletic endeavors, the only thing holding me back there is I'd have to be willing to give those up, because you go run an ultra race. I mean, you're recovering for, weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't do nothing. You know, you go do a 100-mile race, you're out of commission for 4 to 5 weeks.
Unless you're David Goggins.
Unless you're David Goggins. Not everybody's David Goggins, though. So mad respect to him.
Yeah. Well, that's
What's next for you though? What you been up to over there?
We did the Master Worlds. That's jiu-jitsu. It's not an outdoor thing, but it was the first competition in 10 years. First one at black belt. That's what I was training for, but now it's kind of like, I know for sure I'm going to do it again, but I think we're talking about racing. We're talking about something challenging.
So I'm not going to lie. I want to go to your worlds thing.
Yeah.
I'm not big on results of competition or times in racing.
Sure.
I'm about lessons learned. So
right.
I kind of share my lesson learned of like knowing, I learned that, I can empty the tank or, give a mile. What's something you learned from your competition? Because they're very, very different things.
100%. I think the majority of the lesson for me was the leading up to it, right? The training. I had to drop weight, and it was more for selfish reasons I didn't want to be at the, big boy, no weight limit, division and be under some 400-pound dude. I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. So trying to compete at another weight class, I had to drop weight. So that was one. And then just that mental part of it kind of was challenging, because I remember it wasn't just the weight training. It was just the mental part of the discipline, right? Like having that discipline of, I got to get up every day. I got to train. I got to eat right. I got to do all these things because I want to do this, right? Making the decision of, I'm going to compete, so I need to do this. And just going through that part. And then I think day of competition, doing the travel, doing all that. You mentioned something when I was telling you about about the whole match, but because you always kind of like you always analyzed it afterward and going, what could I have done? What would have been the better thing to do? And I think I played it a little safe, where I knew this guy was just trying to hold me, but at the same time, I was holding him too. Where if I would have let go to see what would have happened on the scramble, et cetera. But I think for me, it was just the experience too, and kind of like seeing competition level and going, okay, I know what I need to do at this level to win, right? But yeah, I think it was those couple of things, but I think the biggest thing for me was like just leaving it all out there. You know what I mean?
That's fantastic.
You know what I mean? So it's just kind of, but it was cool. It was fun. It was a fun experience, and the discipline of the training kind of helped me now and stay where I'm at. So yeah, we're talking about whether we're going to compete again prior to the next Worlds, which I think is in September. So there might be another couple of competitions in the middle there somewhere.
Well, reps are always good, so I highly recommend getting out there. What do you call it? Battling, tangling with? What is it? What are y'all's meets called?
It's a tournament.
Yeah, but your individual fixtures, like dancing with them.
Rolls.
Yeah, so
rolling.
I imagine it's like most things. The different types of rolling you see, right?
Yeah.
The just more you see, and then when you see it in your competition, you go, oh, I know what to do.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about with training, because you always train with the same partners. It's like, how do you have to go and compete to see the different reps.
It's funny you say that. So I played tennis in high school a lot.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I picked up is you really have to choose. Do you want to constantly beat the people in or whoever you're playing that day?
Yeah.
Or you want to get better? Because the two may not be, they may be polar opposite strategies, right? You can win today and lose tomorrow, or you can lose today and win tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you just got to constantly remind yourself when you're, especially in 1v1 stuff, and it sounds like your sport's very 1v1 individual based.
Yeah.
Of saying, hey, I need, this is my weak spot. I need to work on this. And if I get, pinned today, I'm going to be better tomorrow because I'm working on whatever skill or attribute I'm trying to work on.
Right.
So.
Well, that's kind of the thing I tell the newer belts that come in and do their first tournaments and stuff is you never lose, because you literally learned it's the moment you walk off the mat, you know exactly what you need to work on.
Yeah.
So you're just learning.
Yep.
So, but well, cool, man. I appreciate you giving us a story. I wish we had video. Next time, I think we should do like GoPro. I think.
Oh, I got 360 footage.
Oh, that's right.
I took
Okay,
a bunch
so
of it.
we need to we'll share that. We need to do something with that. But yeah, man, I'm looking forward to either the next one, and I think Mount Rainier would be something really cool.
I'll send you a link.
Cool, man. All right, brother. Well, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much. And do you have any places where they can follow you for any of the races, or is it just your Instagram?
Yes, Insta. You can share it.
I'll share it on the notes. All right, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, bro.